Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have now heard the evidence, and it's very clear what happened in this case. It is also very clear that the Long Island Railroad is liable to Mrs. Palsgraf for her injuries. Let's review the evidence to see what was proven. Helen Palsgraf and her two daughters, Elizabeth and Lillian, were at the train station waiting for their train to Rockaway Beach. A train bound for Queens came through, stopped and took on passengers, and began to leave the station. Two men ran to catch that train. One man boarded easily, but the other was unstable on the train steps. Two employees of the railroad pushed and pulled that man as he jumped aboard the moving train. This caused him to drop the package he was carrying, which contained fireworks. Each firework was 18 inches long and 4 inches wide. These were very large fireworks. The package became trapped between the train and the wall of the pit leading down to the train tracks. The pressure of the passing train caused the fireworks to explode. There were at least 6 loud and violent explosions. Mrs. Palsgraf was standing about 10 feet away from the exploding package. A set of luggage scales toppled over, hit her, causing physical injuries. Ever since then, she's suffered nervous fits and has difficulty even speaking. The Long Island Railroad would have you find that its employees did nothing wrong in pushing and pulling that man jumping aboard the train. The railroad says that the employees had no idea he was carrying fireworks. Therefore, the railroad's not responsible for the fireworks exploding. In other words, the railroad says that unless the contents of the package were known, the railroad has no duty to protect Mrs. Palsgraf or others at the train station from potential dangers that might be caused by its own employees. But I think you know better. Suppose this were a common traffic accident. What if a driver, not paying attention, hits a man walking across the street? What if that man had a glass bottle in his pocket? Wouldn't the driver be responsible for the injuries caused by the broken glass, even though the driver was ignorant of the bottle's presence in the man's pocket? Of course he would. Just so, the railroad is responsible to Mrs. Palsgraf for her injuries, even though it didn't know what was in the package that was dropped. The railroad employees caused that train passenger to drop the package, and so the railroad is responsible for the package being dropped, the explosion, and the injuries to Mrs. Palsgraf. So members of the jury, we ask you to find that the Long Island Railroad was negligent and must pay Mrs. Palsgraf for her injuries. Don't let the railroad off the hook. Make the railroad pay for the negligent acts of its employees. Thank you.